It's the Resistance Report for February 10th, 2017. Good evening. Last night, the theme was bullying. And I talked to you about the various ways in which Trump knows how to bully to get what he wants. He's trying to get different things. He's using bullying in different ways. Tonight, I want to talk about standing up to bullies. Now, the press has done a fairly good job standing up to Trump, and the court system so far has also done a fairly good job. The Ninth Circuit yesterday coming up with a decision which put at least a stay on the stay. That means essentially kept the stay of the Muslim ban, which Trump would rather not call a Muslim ban. But what about Congress? What about senators, Democrats and Republicans, members of Congress and the House of Representatives? What are they doing? Why aren't they doing more? What could they do? Well, let me give you an example. We have now learned that yesterday at a meeting with senators, ostensibly to talk about Neil Gorsuch, his nominee for the Supreme Court, a senator that was a meeting that was arranged by former New Hampshire Senator Kelly Ayotte. Trump went off script once again. He used the occasion to say that Kelly Ayotte would not have lost her election in 2016, her re-election for the Senate, nor would Trump himself have lost New Hampshire if there had not been for busloads of illegal voters, thousands of people, he called them, coming in from Massachusetts illegally to vote in New Hampshire. Now, again, I want to tell you, if you don't know already, there's absolutely zero evidence that this occurred, and yet Trump feels that he can just use any forum in front of senators to just lie like that. Now, what did the senators do? Well, according to eyewitnesses who were there, they did nothing. There was, in the words of one participant, an uncomfortable silence overtook the room. Now, I want to know why it is that Democratic and Republican senators cannot stand up and say to Donald Trump to his face, "You're lying, sir." Why do they allow his lies to persist, even in private meetings? Now, in that same meeting, Donald Trump then reacted to Mitch McConnell's silencing of Elizabeth Warren. And what did Trump do? He referred to her once again as Pocahontas. That is the way he demeans her, the way he did it during the campaign. And he told Democrats in the room that he was glad Warren was becoming, quote, the face of your party, unquote. Now, why did no senator stand up and say that is demeaning, Mr. President? No president should talk that way about a member of the United States Senate. Why not? Are they afraid of Donald Trump? If they're afraid of Donald Trump, they shouldn't be serving in the Senate. I think our senators ought to have a little bit more backbone, whether they're Democrats or Republicans. Or here's another issue. How to explain Michael Flynn discussing removing Russian sanctions with the Russian ambassador before Trump was inaugurated. Now, you remember, we heard this story before, but Michael Flynn said, and Mike Pence also said, no, nothing was discussed with the Russian ambassador. This is before the inauguration. Nothing was discussed with the Russian ambassador, just some logistics. Well, it turns out, and it's coming out, and there's eyewitness accounts, that actually Michael Flynn did discuss ending sanctions with the Russian ambassador, and this was exactly the point where the Obama administration was going to level even more sanctions because of information coming out about Russian interference in the campaign. So just at that time, what happens? The person who is going to become Trump's national security advisor is on the phone He's just a private citizen. He doesn't have any formal authorization. He's on the phone undercutting what the President of the United States, then Barack Obama, is doing. That is called illegality. That's illegal. That's against the law. That violates the Logan Act. No private citizen is allowed to do that. That's traitorous behavior. Now, did Trump know about that? If Trump knew about that, Trump needs to explain that. If Michael Flynn knew about that, he needs to explain why he did it. He's now saying he doesn't remember. Baloney, he doesn't remember? He ought to be fired. And the question here is, where are the Republicans in the Senate in terms of the Russian connection? Where is, for example, Senator John McCain? We talked about John McCain yesterday. Why doesn't John McCain say, this person, Michael Flynn, who is now your national security advisor, we can't trust him. We in the Senate can't trust him. Why aren't members of the Senate Intelligence Committee standing up and saying, we can't trust this man? He violates the law. He conspires with the Russians to undercut American foreign policy. Well, here's another example of not standing up to Trump. We know that the Trump swamp is oozing money and sleaze. Donald Trump came to Washington saying he drained the swamp. It's actually getting sleazier. Last night, Trump met with the same billionaire who he once mocked his primary opponents for depending on. His name is Sheldon Adelson. Trump had dinner with Adelson. Adelson, you may remember, spent more than $21 million on the Trump campaign. The payoff, we don't know. But why is there no discussion of this in the House or the Senate? Betsy DeVos. She proved that cabinet positions themselves are for sale in the Trump presidency. Last year, in addition, the family of Andrew Posner, who is up for becoming the Secretary of Labor, contributed almost $700,000 to Republicans, many of whom are going to be deciding on whether Posner should be confirmed. That's more than twice the amount the family contributed in the 2012 and 2014 elections. But just like DeVos, Posner is buying his way into a cabinet position. Why isn't there more discussion? Why aren't senators saying this is wrong? Federal ethics laws would seem to be a bar to this, as they are a bar to what happened just a couple of days ago when Kellyanne Conway urged people to buy Ivanka Trump's line of clothing. And with Donald Trump castigated a department store, Nordstrom's, from canceling her line of clothing. That violates ethics laws, federal ethics laws. Let me just read this to you. It states, and no federal employee shall use his public office for his own private gain, for the endorsement of any product, service, or enterprise, or for the private gain of friends or relatives or persons with whom the employee is affiliated in a non-governmental capacity. Right squarely on point. Do these laws mean nothing? Now, there is a committee in the House of Representatives that is supposed to oversee the enforcement of this law. It's called the House Oversight Committee, and the chairman of the House Oversight Committee is Jason Chaffetz. Jason Chaffetz spent months investigating Hillary Clinton's emails. What about all of this? What about the swamp? What about Trump's tax returns, failures to provide his tax return? What about all of the conflicts of interest that Donald Trump has financially? Where is Jason Chaffetz? Well, I'm going to give you a piece of good information, because many of you might just be saying to yourself, well, it's Republicans. What do you expect Republicans to do? Republicans are not going to stand up to Trump. Well, who is going to stand up to Republicans? Here is some piece of good news. The people are rising. At congressional town halls across America, they're being undertaken right now Members of Congress are going home and they are having town halls. And guess what? Guess who is showing up at the town halls? Republican members of Congress. Conservative areas of the country. People are showing up who are angry at Donald Trump and at Republicans who are not standing up to Donald Trump. Last night in suburban Salt Lake City, local police estimated more than 1,000 people showed up at a high school auditorium to see who? Republican Jason Chaffetz, the person I was just talking about, who's not doing his job, who's not doing any oversight of the Trump administration and the Trump conflicts of interest and everything else that I have been mentioning. And hundreds of others waited outside, and for 75 minutes, Chaffetz confronted a crowd of angry constituents who asked him to do his job, who told him to do his job. Do your job, they said over and over. They chanted. What did Chaffetz say about Kellyanne Conway and her endorsement and her desire, her statement that people should go out and buy Ivanka Trump's products? Well, he said, and I'm going to quote him, Chaffetz, in response to angry constituents, angry about Kellyanne Conway, about Donald Trump, he said, quote, wrong, wrong, wrong. Well, Representative Chaffetz, if it's wrong, 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 I expect you to do something about it. I expect you to hold hearings on the wrong, wrong, wrong. And when other members of the crowd expressed anger about the confirmation of Betsy DeVos for Secretary of Education, what did Chaffetz said? He said, I want to get rid of Betsy DeVos. This is the Republican, head of the House Oversight Committee. And it's not just suburban Salt Lake City. These are very conservative areas. 1,700 miles away in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Republican Representative Diane Black. She had a town hall meeting. She was met by a crowd of constituents who were furious about the pending repeal of Obamacare. They're Republican constituents. They didn't want Obamacare repealed. One of them said, you want to take away this coverage and have nothing to replace it with? How can I trust you to do anything that's in our interest at all? You see, the way you get Congress to stand up to Trump is you stand up to Congress. The way you get Republicans to act in the public interest and stand up to the bully, Donald Trump, who is not only bullying but violating the law, the way you get Republicans to do their job is you demand that they do their job, or they are going to be out of their job at the next election, in the midterms. That's called democracy. That's how democracy works. So what we want to do in these nightly sessions is talk about not only what Trump is doing and what his administration is doing that is wrong and illegal and bullying and undermining of our democratic system of government, but also talk about what you can do, like going to town halls where your members of Congress are meeting with constituents and demanding they do their job, that they hold this administration accountable to the law, to you. The people are rising. And that is the best news I can possibly convey. That's it for the Resistance Report tonight. Have a good weekend. See you next week.